guys, this is Christy Fulk with Create with Christy. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US. Today's video is another video showing how to make Stampin' Up! Ornate garden cards. If you've missed the last one I made with the Ornate Garden Suite, you can see it by clicking the link above or clicking the link below in the description. I've also done a live stream where I showed all the beautiful products in this suite and made another card, and you can see it by clicking on the link above or the link below in the description. Like the last card, today's is another good thank you card for a friend. It features the Ornate Style Bundle and the Ornate Thanks Stamp Set from the suite. I love the layered dies and the Ornate Layers dies, and this card shows them off wonderfully. You can see these pretty layers here, and this layer too is also from that die set. I'll be doing some heat embossing again, but this time I'm going to be using copper embossing powder. And I hate to say this because I love the copper. Our copper embossing powder is retiring, so make sure you get that before it sells out. It's while supplies last or until June 2nd, whichever comes first. And I'll also be showing you how to watercolor with rubber stamps. I love watercoloring cards and I really like it with heat embossing. I hope you like it too. Are you ready to stamp with me? Okay, let's get started. Okay, to start off, I'm going to show you everything that you need to make your card. And then when I've listed all the supplies you need, you can pause the video, get your supplies together, and come back and stamp with me. First thing you're going to need is the Ornate Style Bundle, and that includes the Ornate Style Stamp Set and the Ornate Layers dies. Didn't I say those were gorgeous? Oh, I love these dies. And you can get these together as a bundle at 10% off. You'll save 10% from purchasing them individually, that is. And this is also part of that Ornate Garden Suite that I was talking about at the beginning. You need this largest die here, this one, and then we're also going to need this long stitched rectangle here. So those are all the dies we'll need from the Ornate Layers. You also need the Ornate Thanks Stamp Set. I love the fonts on this. I love that you can make different sentences, and this is a great set to have to be able to send out thank you cards to your friends. And I'm using the big thank you, and I'm also going to use this Your Kindness is to Love stamp. Then you also need the Ornate Floral Embossing Folder. This is the last thing that we'll be using from the Ornate Garden Suite. And the Ornate Garden Suite is something that's going to be in the new annual catalog starting in June, but Stampin' Up! Is giving us 2 months before the catalog starts to order it. So it's been available all through April, and it's available here this month too in May. And I love this folder, and you're going to see how beautiful it is embossed in cardstock here in a minute. You also need the stitched rectangle dies. Now, if you have the retired list, you saw that these were on the retired list. The only reason they put it on there is because they're renaming it and putting it under new item number. So these dies will still be available, thank goodness. I love these dies. And I'm using the number 4 die. Whenever I figure that out, I always start with the smallest as number 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we go. So we're going to use that one. We also need a terracotta tile classic pad. So saffron, oops, dies are falling everywhere. So saffron, old olive, mint macaron, early espresso, and you'll also need a Versamark pad. This is for embossing. And speaking of embossing, you need your heat tool. You're going to need copper embossing powder, and this is retiring, so if you love copper as much as I do, make sure you get it ordered before it sells out, because it's while supplies last, or until June 2nd, whichever comes first. And then this is optional. This is an embossing buddy. I'll tell you the reason I use it, but these are no longer available. They've already sold out on these. This was on the retired list too. You also need snail and or multi-purpose glue. You're going to need a blender pen and Stampin' Dimensionals. And then the cardstock that you're going to need is a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of early espresso, a 4-inch by 5.25-inch piece of mint macaron, a 3.5-inch by 5-inch piece of terracotta tile. You're going to need a 4 by 5.25-inch piece of Whisper White, and this is going to be the inside of the card. You need a piece of 2.5 by 4 inch for the rectangle die. And you'll need one more piece of Whisper White that is a 4 1/4 by 1 1/4, and this is going to be for the greeting. Okay, that's everything you need for the card, so go ahead and pause the video, and then when you have everything together, come back and stamp with me. See you in a few minutes. Okay, let's get started. Let's grab the early espresso piece and fold it in half. You can use your finger or you can use your bone folder to get a nice crisp crease. So we've got the card base ready to go. You need to grab your 4 1/4 by 1 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White, and we're gonna be stamping the thank you on it. And we no longer have that Stampin' Pierce mat that I've always used for stamping with photopolymer. I actually use it with all my stamps because I like having that foam base. It just is nice to support. Well, a demonstrator friend of mine found out that using the Stamparatus pad, this is a foam pad that comes with your Stamparatus, works perfectly. So if you don't have the Stamparatus, I do suggest getting that. But if you just want to get the foam mat, you can. These are, you can purchase these separately. So we're going to go ahead and put this down, grab your early espresso ink pad and the big thank you stamp from the Ornate Thanks stamp set. And stamp this close to the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be die cutting it out. Just hold down for a few seconds. And there you go. So see, that pad works perfectly. So go ahead and let that air dry for a few minutes. Well, actually for a few seconds. Then go ahead and grab your other piece of Whisper White, be the smallest one that you've got left. This is the 4 by 2 1/2 inch piece. You want to grab that mint macaron piece, and you want to grab your terracotta tile. And what we're going to do, we're going to put these through the die cutting machine. The reason I'm putting this down like this, you don't want to put it through your die cutting machine like this. Whenever you have the long side going in first, it tends to not cut very well. It works a lot better if you do it this way. So you're just going to center that as much as you can in that opening. This pretty frame is going to be going on this one. Your rectangle die is going on the Whisper White one. And then this larger one is going on the mint macaron, like so. So I've got make sure I've got all those in the video screen so you can see it. So go ahead and put these through your die cutting machine. One little tip I want to tell you, with these long dies, it is actually better if you can make it work in your machine to make it go at a little bit of an angle. So one of the corners is the first thing to go under. That makes it so it doesn't pop, because when it pops, it can hurt your die cutting machine, and I've had it start to warp some of my dies. So if you put it in at a little bit of an angle, it helps protect your machine and your dies. So go ahead and get these die cut. And after you get this die cut, I actually did this one ahead of time so I could show you what you need to do. This is what it's going to look like after you die cut it. I love that, the border on that. Then you also want to grab your ornate floral while you're up. Put this inside. Use the sandwich you need to emboss it. This is a 3D folder, so you only need one cutting pad. And if you've got the blue one, that's the one that works perfect. And then you run this through your die cutting machine like so, and that'll get you the embossed image. So go ahead and first die cut this out, and then go and emboss this after you've die cut it. And these just get die cut. So go get this done and come back and we'll finish the rest of the card. Okay, now that you've got that done, you should have this. Isn't this gorgeous? I love that embossing. So that's what it should look like after you've die cut it and then embossed it. Then you've got your frame, your thank you. Love how that fits in perfectly. And this is your rectangle piece. Now this is the one we're going to be stamping on. Let's go ahead and put these pieces over here for right now. Grab my scrap paper again with my Stamparatus mat underneath it. And we want to grab this big floral image for the Ornate Style stamp set. Now this part is the optional part. I do this because it takes out any static and moisture that's in the paper. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. You don't have to do that step. Then you take your Versamark pad, get it inked up really well. Make sure you get it completely covered. Now this is bigger than this image here, so don't worry about it. Just try to get it as centered as you can, because you're not going to get all of it, and that's fine. It's going to look really neat. You're going to like the way it looks. Make sure you get pressure all the way around it. That's another thing. I know this is rubber, but having that little mat underneath it is going to make the image come out a lot better. Grab that because it does tend to stick with the Versamark. Now you probably can't see that in the video, but it left a neat watermark. It's hard to see that on white cardstock. So what we're going to do, but you're going to see it here in just a second. Let me get this out of the way because we don't need this anymore. I'm going to grab my copper embossing powder. Let me get a hold of this. I don't want to touch it too much because I don't want to smear any of that stamped image. And then cover it up with the copper embossing powder, and all of a sudden it's going to stick to where you stamped it. If you haven't heat embossed before, you're going to be amazed at how easy it is. Kind of flick it a little bit because I've got some that's in places I don't want it, so just kind of flick it. That looks really good. So isn't that pretty? But that it's going to look even better here in just a second. So you've got that pretty image. I'm going to grab, I take your pick tool. So I can hold on to this right here because the heat tool gets very hot. I think it's like 500, 600 degrees, something like that. I'm going to close this up because I don't need that right now. Grab my heat tool. I'm going to let it run for a few seconds to get it heated up. And keep your hand pretty far away from it because, like I said, it gets really hot and you don't want to get yourself burned. Okay, that feels pretty warm. So I'm going to hold this down so it doesn't go flying around on me. I'm going to keep this at an angle so you can see it. But I keep it in one spot, and now you can see it's starting to melt. Once it warms up, see, there we go. See that shiny copper? Isn't that pretty? Oh, I'm going to miss this copper embossing powder. But you can still get it. It's still available. Like I said, it's while supplies last or till June 2nd. Oh, this is so pretty. And you could leave it with just it being embossed. I'm going to show you here in a minute how to watercolor with our ink pads. Okay, it's all done. You just keep doing it until everything is melted. You don't want to go heat it up too much. As soon as you see it shiny, go to another section and keep going until it's all nice and shiny. And I tend to move it around in the light to make sure I didn't miss a spot and everything looks really shiny. As soon as it's shiny, you stop because it'll start melting into your paper if you go too long. Isn't that pretty? I love that. So now we're going to do some watercoloring. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my paper again because I don't want to make a mess here on my work space. I think the first thing I'm going to color in are these flowers here. I've grabbed the terracotta tile. And since this is Whisper White, I'm not using aqua painters. I'm going to use my blender pen because this paper does not do well with a lot of water. So the blender pen uses very little moisture. It does use moisture, but it won't saturate your card. I mean, if you do it way too much, it will start to mess up your paper, but the blender pen works pretty good with it. So you squeeze your terracotta because I want to make a little ink pool here in the lid. That's where I'm going to pick up my ink. So you pick it up with this, and wherever I want it dark, that's where I'm going to start coloring. Now it'll start to lighten up as I use up the ink, and when I notice that, I'm going to move on to the next one, and it is okay if you color over the embossing because it resists the ink. It's starting to lighten up now, so I'm going to color in the other parts of the petals that I want to be lighter. And you just keep adding ink. I don't know if you can see that. So I've got the centers down here a little darker, and then up here it's a little lighter. Then when it gets to be too light, you just pick up some more ink, go to places where you want it to be dark again until it starts to lighten up a little bit, and keep going. Now, if you get to where you've got everything dark that you want dark and you just want light, go ahead and pick up some ink, wipe it on your scrap paper just a little bit, and then it'll be lightened up for you and you can go on from there. So I'll keep coloring in these two flowers I want with the terracotta tile. Okay, that looks pretty good. There are a couple places I might want to add a little more dark. That's one thing, you can always add a little more ink. You can't take away. So it's okay if you get a little lighter than you want it. That looks pretty good. So I love that with that copper. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, now when you're ready for another color, you color it off on your scrap paper until there's no ink anymore, any ink color again. Now I'll go ahead and grab the So Saffron, squeeze it, and I'm going to do these daisy-like flowers up here with the So Saffron. Doing the same thing as I did with the other one. Make sure the ink is still off. It is. I always double check before I start coloring in case I didn't get it all off. And this bottom part here, I want a little darker. And kind of where those little lines are too, that kind of shows where you want it darker. And then when it starts to get lighter, then you color in the whole thing so you still got that darker base. You just keep doing that with both of these flowers. Okay, I've got all those done. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's see, let's do the mint macaron. All of these little flowers I want to do with the mint macaron. Oh, there is some ink there, but I think I need a little bit more, so I'll squeeze that. There we go. And whenever I'm done, I go ahead and leave that pool there because it's not going to hurt your pad at all. One thing that might hurt your pad is if you pick up the ink directly from the pad, because sometimes that gives you a little, it lightens up that one little area, and I think it starts to hurt the pad too, so that's why I do it here in the lid. And I'm going to make just the center of these with the dark macaron. And then when it starts to get light, which it already is, then I'll start doing the petals. And if you ever just want to grab some of the lighter areas here, that also will give you the lighter of the color. There we go. So I'll keep doing all of these little flowers like this. Okay, I think that's got all the flowers. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the flower centers quick of these little ones and the daisy-like ones. I'll do that with early espresso. So I squeeze that. That just gave me a little pool. Let's see if I can get a bigger one. Sometimes the cases are a little tighter and you can't, there, that made it bigger. So you just squeeze a little harder. I really didn't need that much. Like I said, I didn't have to, but I'm going to do this center here. And like I said, it's okay going over the embossing because it's going to resist the ink. Now here I just need to put a little dot in each one because I don't want to go outside the lines here because then I'm going to get brown where my green flower is. So this goes pretty quick. There we go. I think that's all the centers. So we've got those done. So make sure we get all of that brown off. You definitely don't want that getting mixed in with your old olive. And that's what you need next. So we'll squeeze that, get our pool. And now we'll do all the leaves. And where these little lines are here, the centers, that's where I want it to be darker. So that's going to be the first thing I color. And then if it still seems pretty dark, then I can start on another leaf. When it starts to lighten up, then I can go back and do this one. Now you can see the different shading. And you can always go back and add more ink if you need to. So I'm going to do all the leaves. Okay, it looks like I got it all colored in. Isn't that pretty? So yeah, it looked good just with the copper, but I think it looks a whole lot better with it colored in. So we are almost done with this card. Bring in all of the layers again. I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue because whenever I work with embossing, with cardstock that's been embossed, I think the glue works a little better than our snail. And speaking of snail, that is retiring too. But I'm looking forward to our new adhesive. So if you're wanting the refills, they're still in stock. So you want to get those before they sell out too. But our new glue I'm really excited about. It's supposed to be better. It actually even gives you a little more glue, not glue, but adhesive strip than our snail. And there's also going to be another one that is extra sticky for making boxes and things like that. So I'm real excited to get both of those. So I'm going to, as you noticed, when I put the glue on there, I didn't bother to put any on this ornate frame part, just on the solid middle. Now this one I'm going to put on, I could do it with snail since it's just going on flat cardstock, but since I've got my glue out, I'll go ahead and finish up with the glue. And it's going to fit perfectly right in there. Isn't that cool how those our stitched rectangle dies work perfect with that? Isn't that pretty? Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put this on our card base. So once again, I'm just going to put it on the flat, on the solid part actually. It is embossed, but it's solid. Not put in any glue where these openings are because I don't want glue seeping out the holes. Make sure you don't put it on upside down. They actually look okay the other way too. These flowers can be hanging also, but I like it better with those daisies on top. Okay, we've got that ready to go. Now I'm going to grab some dimensionals and put some here on my long thank you. I think I'm going to just put one here, one on the end, and one in the middle, and that should be good. Bring in my take your pick tool. And if you've seen my videos before, you know I do this a lot now. If you hold this piercing part at an angle, poke the paper backing and scoop it up. You can get these off. It sticks on, the paper stays on your little piercing mat, piercing tool. Take these off and throw them in your trash and you don't have them all over your house. Gotta love that, because I'm always finding those all over the place. Okay, I decided to put it in between these two terracotta tile flowers, because I want one on each, the top and the bottom, and center it left and right. And once I've got it where I want it, I'm at an angle, so I don't know if, let me stand up and see if I've got it straight. That's not too bad. Push that down, and now we've got the front completely done. Isn't that pretty? But we want to get that inside nice, especially since this is a dark cardstock on the inside. So grab that 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White. We're going to stamp this pretty daisy that's also in that ornate style stamp set using Early Espresso. I'm going to go ahead, well, since it's rubber, I don't have to have that matte, so we'll go ahead and do this. There we go, we've got that stamped. I do need that matte though. I forgot the words I'm going to put on our photopolymer. So you want to grab the Your Kindness is So Loved, ink it up with your Early Espresso, stamp it up here. Go ahead and close this because we are definitely done with this. Grab, I take that back, I will need that again, that's all right. Okay, grab that blender pen. Where did I throw it to? Oh, there we go. I'll put it back in my dish. I actually put it away. My goodness. Well, wonders never cease. I usually throw things around, can't find it. Go ahead and do that So Saffron down at the bottom again. And then when it starts to lighten up, go on the outer parts like so, and just keep coloring in the flower. Okay, the flower's done. Now I want to show you a little trick, because I don't think we do need the Early Espresso now I think about it. This is a water-based ink, so if I go over it, that brown is going to start, see, it's starting to fill it in, so now it's already brown. Now that's one thing you're going to need to be careful when you do the flower. Don't go over it a whole bunch of times, because then that brown ink is going to start to bleed. I just didn't want to do it in black because it just didn't go along with the brown theme I had for the card. But if you're real careful and don't do too much of the blending with the ink with this, it's not going to smear. But I intentionally wanted the middle to do that. Then grab your mint macaron and we'll get the leaf all colored in. There we go. So that didn't take me long at all because I didn't want to color too much or that would start smearing, the brown wood. Now we'll put that, I'm going to grab my snail for this one since I've got it handy. It could definitely be done with the glue also. And we will get this on the inside and the card will be finished. There we go. Isn't that pretty? I love being able to decorate the insides too. I hope you enjoyed making the card. I always have fun stamping with you and I hope you had fun too. If you did have fun and want to stamp with me again, please make sure to click the subscribe button below to subscribe to my channel. And then when you do that, you'll see a little bell. Make sure you click on that bell and choose all. That way you'll be notified every time I upload a video. And I don't make videos for all my creations, so if you want to see more, you'll want to follow me on my blog, which is createwithchristy.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, and all the links to those are below in my video description. If you live in the United States and don't have a Stampin' Up! Demo, I'd love to be yours. If you need current catalogs mailed to you, just click the Contact Me link below in the description and let me know. You can order from me 24/7 by clicking the online store link that's in the video description too. And don't miss out on earning a $50 shopping spree on me. Find out how by clicking the Doily Rewards link below. See you in the next video.